Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing a little bit of work for prepping and cleaning our calipers for powder coating. I'm new to powder coating, so I'm definitely eager to try this out and kind of see what our results are going to turn out and be like. But before we get into any of the sandblast and powder coating stuff, we need to get these 100% completely disassembled, take off all the pieces and get these knocked down, take out the pistons, the seals, and get everything out of here, so that way when we go to bake these in the oven, nothing gets damaged and we don't get sandblasting material into these. Just to kind of go over these calipers for this, so these are the OEM calipers that come on the 2nd/3rd gen 3000 GT Vr4s. You'll see it has the Mitsubishi logo there. That's how you can tell that this is the Vr4 calipers. And these are definitely a very thick and beefy caliper. These work phenomenally, and we're just gonna clean them up and make them look good. And at this point in time right now, I don't know if I am going to end up replacing the seals on these when I disassemble them. We're gonna take a look at them, inspect them. If they look to be in great shape, we may just keep them. We're gonna start by doing the rears first. First thing we're gonna do is take off our hose piece, grab a crowfoot, 17 mil, get it on here. Next up, we're going to take this little wire piece right here. This just pops right out. And then we'll pull it up out of these little like rivets right here. So if you pull this part up, it comes right out. Get this one. Now we have these dowel pins. You can just push these straight through. We'll come on this back side, get a set of oh, it looks like we can just pull these straight on out. One dowel, two dowel, and then this will drop our brake pads directly out. Here's our top piece here for the caliper. Brake pad, brake pad. What we need to do is remove our first dust shield cover on each one of these pistons. So on each one of these boots that goes around the pistons, there is a little clip. It's a little metal, like paper clip ring. We're gonna get underneath it with just a little teeny tiny flathead, come up under it, and just kind of work its way all the way around to get that piece off. And there's your clip. And then we can take our boot here and we need to slide this over the top lip, which if you just pull it on up, it should come out and over. Just be careful not to tear it. Do the same thing onto this side. Take off our bleeder valve. This whole entire caliper splits apart right down the middle. Now there's 4 bolts that hold this together, so you got all 4 right here on the top, 3 and 4. They're a 14 millimeter. We're gonna hit them with the impact, and then we can crack this in half. And this is what the caliper now looks like, split in half. Now this is probably the most important step if you ask me. There's these 2 seals that will seal where this connects together and where that brake fluid will flow through in order to keep it from leaking. And their rates, they could be on either side, so just check either side. There's one right here. It's just a little teeny tiny black, similar to an O-ring. We're gonna set this off to the side, and then we'll get our other one, get that out. Now we can move on to the actual pistons. The way we're gonna get these pistons out of here is I have 2 medium-sized pry bars. Hit this from each side. So we'll get underneath the lip from both sides, and we're just gonna press this out. Okay. Now we'll take it, and this piece just comes out just like that. We'll do the same thing to the other one. Last step is this one seal that is underneath the piston. Take either like a fine pick or a very fine tip flathead screwdriver, push in underneath it, and then just kind of pry it on up. Make sure you get underneath it because you don't want to tear it at all. And then it should kind of just come right out. There we go. And this is your other ring gasket. We're gonna get that last one off, and that'll wrap up our first caliper. I already did the same to the other rear, and then we can move on to the 2 front big guys. Now we're going to move on to the front big calipers here, the 4 pistons. I'm not even really going to show you guys the whole thing because it's exactly the same exact process as the rear. The only difference is you have an additional piston on each side. I'll probably just do a quick time lapse for this and then we can get everything cleaned up. The only difference to note with these front set of calipers for these pistons and whatnot is there is actually a difference in the size between these two. They are very similar and it's close, but just make sure that you know one of these is bigger. When you go to put these back together, I imagine they can only go in the correct slots. I'm back out here working on these calipers. I'm gonna be powder coating them and hopefully completing them in this video. What I did to go ahead and prep these before we go ahead and throw them in the sandblaster is I did initially completely disassemble them and break them down, but what I just did was I ended up throwing these pistons and our seals all back into the caliper, and we bolted them back together, plugged the cap off the inlet where the brake line hose goes, and I did this to all of them. You don't want any of the sandblast material or media getting inside of these piston sections because it can damage and mess up the walls in here for your pistons, which would render your caliper useless. But we're going to throw all these in the sandblaster. We got this all set up. We're going to throw in our media. Our media that we're using is aluminum oxide. This stuff should be pretty decent for powder coating, and we are using 80 grit. Our pressure regulator set to 60 pounds. We'll see if that's okay. I've just sandblasted a couple of these calipers. I just have one more to do. You can see this one on the left, nice, clean, shiny. That is going to be our sandblasted one, and then the dirty one, or the one that still needs to be blasted here on the right. So huge difference. I got both the rears in there that are all completed. Also, I did bump up the PSI on the sandblaster to right around 80 PSI. That seems to be working pretty good. Here is what our calipers now look like. You just saw me blow them off with some compressed air, and then I just put them in just a water, soaked them in water, so they're all rinsed off and they're just drying right now. So what we're going to move on to is setting up our powder coat gun. So let's go ahead, take a look at what we have in this box. For the gun, what I picked up was the Redline EZ-50 powder coat gun. People are having great results with these guns. The only downside is that they are a little bit pricier than some of the other options, so not cheap, but neither is sending your stuff out to get powder coated by somebody else, which I've already priced out several times. And for doing my calipers and my valve covers all the same color, it was gonna cost right around $700, somewhere in the neighborhood of that. So we're gonna do this ourselves. We'll have all these tools and stuff left over to powder coat future projects. The one thing that they do not include in this kit that I am extremely frustrated about, they are missing a fitting that goes into the bottom side of this little brick. They do include a barbed fitting hose, but with this you're gonna have to run a hose to something else to get it to your air compressor line. I did have to go ahead and order an assortment of fittings to get this to fit, and these are some weird custom fittings because they use BSP thread, so that's super unusual and almost nobody makes anything for that. I'm going to link these fittings in the description below that you will need if you do get one of these guns to get this to convert back to a normal fitting. We got all the fittings hooked up. Now this is what it's going to look like. Right now what I'm working on is we're just taping off all of the sections that we don't want paint to get on this. So I did get some powder coat heat tape, and I also did use some plugs on any of the threaded portions that I didn't use the tape on, but mainly just get your pistons. Both of these need to get taped off, and then any of the parts where threads go into, either put a plug or tape these off. I just taped them off just because that's easiest. Of the calipers have been cleaned off with microfiber towel and some rubbing alcohol. I've also blown them off with some compressed air. Now we need to throw this in the oven at 400 degrees and we're going to bake it for about 10 to 20 minutes just to bake out the impurities and kind of all the oils and stuff like that to get this set up and get the base of it ready for the actual powder coat to stick to. While our part is baking in the oven, I'm gonna go over some of the colors that I have laid out in front of us. We got 3 different colors that we're gonna be using. These are all powders from Prismatic Powders. They sell a bunch of different colors and a lot of good stuff. First color that we're gonna use for our base, this is a Alien Silver. Next, we're gonna hit it with this translucent red color. This is Lollipop Red, one of their more common and popular colors. And then lastly, we're gonna hit this with some clear coat just to give it a little bit more depth and some more of that translucent color. Hopefully the metallics and the pearls in this Alien Silver should really come through this red color and should give it a pretty nice and cool effect. So that's gonna be the plan. We're just gonna start off by getting some powder in our gun first. So we'll go ahead and unscrew this. We're gonna start with this Alien Silver that we're just gonna scoop it out with and add some into our cup. It's probably full up to about right here. A little bit does go a long ways. We are doing 2 calipers at a time. At least we're doing the rears first. After you get your gun with the powder setup in it, you get all these different wires that come in it. You can just hook this into an outlet. We'll do that in just a second. So you'll have 2 connections that go to these wires that we have that are included with this gun. One will go directly into the bottom side of the gun. We'll just plug this in, okay? And then we'll twist this piece on, make sure it's nice and secure. Our air compressor fitting, go ahead and hook this up. All right, that's good. And then lastly, we'll have our ground piece that will get connected onto our part or the wire that goes onto our part so it gets a good solid connection with it. The only other thing that you really need to do is set your regulator on this. So I got this set up to and hooked up to my big air compressor. I have it set right around between 30 and 40 PSI is usually pretty decent. Other than that, I do have the parts out. I just pulled them out of the oven and they're just cooling off right now. And then we'll go ahead and lay down our first coat. I did situate and kind of rearrange how the caliper is sitting on the rack. I added some more copper wire to the back and kind of strung it up so we have better access to get in here with our gun. So with our gun, you have 2 different adjustment settings. You have the kV voltage on the backside. Right here, this is what adjusts kind of how electromagnetic-y the powder is to the actual part. And then you have the air pressure right here on the bottom. So for this, you want it up fairly high. So this is gonna be the max. We're just gonna kick it back to about right here. That should be good for our first base coat. And then as far as this, we have the pressure regulators set to close to 35 PSI. So we're just gonna go ahead and pull the trigger really quick and see kind of how much powder's coming out and if we need to adjust this or not. So we're gonna cut it back a little bit. It's coming out a little bit too quick. All right, so that's probably good right about there. So now the only thing we need to do is hook up our ground onto our part and then we can get to spraying these. Here's that ground clamp. We're just gonna stick it right on this copper wire. Once you're happy with the coverage on this, I kind of like to take a light and just go around, make sure everything is nice and on here laid out evenly. I do want these letters to be brushed for the Mitsubishi logo. So I just have a damp, wet rag. And what we're gonna do is just take our finger, just kind of wipe some of the water on, and then we're just gonna come across these letters and get this powder off of the letters without making a mess out of anything else. First stage is now done. These are gonna go in the oven for the set time on this, which is 10 minutes at 400 degrees. That timer starts once this actually hits 400 degrees, so don't start your timer right away. We're gonna have to use the temp gun right here. In the meantime, we're gonna go ahead, switch out our powder, and get in our powder for our next stage. So we'll just take our old powder off and throw the excess back in our bag. And then we can just take the air gun and we're just gonna blow the container out along with the gun, kind of everything in here. Make sure to spray in this little slot, spray the entire gun off, and get all the extra excess powder off of this so we can start fresh with our other color. Next color up we'll be using is the Lollipop Red. Looks like we're pretty close to 400 degrees, so we're now going to start our timer for 10 minutes. Time's almost up. Let's go ahead, we'll pull these out, and we're going to get them over here on the rack. These are now out. You can see this alien silver definitely has quite a bit of metallic and sparkle in it. These look pretty good. They float out nicely. Both of the parts now setting out for quite a bit to just cool off to room temp. And we'll just hit it real quick. Looks like they're just over 100 degrees, which isn't too bad. These are taking actually really long to cool off. I didn't think this whole process would take this long, but this aluminum seems to be very slow to heat up and also slow to cool down. But anyways, it's cool enough right now to where the powder isn't gonna melt when we hit it on. So we're gonna shoot it with the red. The only difference, and I'll show you what the differences are that we're gonna make with the gun. We got the gun all set up with our new color. Like I said, the only differences we're gonna be making is with this voltage on the back. We're gonna turn this up just a little bit since we're doing our second coat now. And the other thing we're gonna do is, or at least that I've found to have better success with, is move the gun back. You wanna start quite a ways further away, because if you get too close, you can kind of mess up the powder sticking to the part. It won't wanna stick. It has something to do with the electromagnet type deal thing, how this works. So just kind of start from a ways back, and we should be able to get this to stick here. Let me go ahead and start spraying a little bit on. You just saw me shoot at this for a quick second, and right after I shot that one little snippet, the gun just went ahead and died on me. The Redline gun did, and I wasn't able to spray out any more powder from the gun. I looked into it a little bit, and it looks like we're having an issue with the cord, the charge cord, because my light turned off on the backside of the gun, as well as this cord. This light wasn't lighting up, and I tried kind of playing around with it a little bit. There was some smoke coming out from this cord. So we got an issue with this gun already. The gun's hardly got any usage on it. I'm gonna have to do a little bit of diving into this, maybe order another cord. Welcome back, you guys. Here we are 2 weeks later approximately, after my gun had a malfunction with me spraying it out. When I went to do the second coat of powder, I did two things. I ordered a completely separate new power cord for this. In addition, I also reached out to Redline Warranty, who pulled through on their services, and they supplied me with a new power cord for this. And as well, it's also a upgraded power cord. It's almost twice the size of what the original box was that goes to the outlet. So this should be a little bit better and stronger. Question is now, since I've already did one coat on the calipers, let me go ahead, pull those out. I'll get everything laid out, and we'll kind of go over what I should do now. Now, after talking with Prismatic Powders, in reference to this issue where you do one coat and you let it cure, let it dry, and then you go to do a second coat, in my instance, and the gun malfunctions and you're kind of caught in the middle of what do you do now? In our instance, we had to wait 2 weeks for the next part. We are waiting to spray on the Lollipop Red. After speaking with the people over at Prismatic Powders, they pretty much said, just go ahead, try out the colors and finish the powder coating and see how it turns out. and then from there you can make a determination if you want to strip it and start over. So we're gonna go ahead and shoot this with the red. We'll throw it in the oven, and we're gonna continue on this process like nothing ever happened, and we'll see how this stuff turns out. I just plugged it in. Looks like we have power to both the supply as well as the back of our gun turning red. So let's go ahead and spray this with our next red color and finally get some color on this. Those are in the oven. Now, per the instructions on this, the cure time is 10 minutes at 375 degrees once the part reaches 375 degrees. Now, because we are doing a clear coat over the top of this, that changes that up a little bit, so you actually don't want your color to fully cure. Once this hits 375 degrees, we'll give it about 3 to 5 minutes, and then we're going to pull it. Check temp on these real quick. Looks like we're about 270. Let these go for a little bit longer. All right, looks like we're just under that 375 temp. We're gonna give it probably about 6 or 7 more minutes, and we'll start our timer. I just pulled them out of the oven, and at first glance, these do look, the color actually looks pretty darn good. It does seem to be a little bit faded out in some spots on the back. That's not as important as the face of it, which is the part that you're actually going to see. We're gonna let these cool down completely. And once these get cooled down, we'll go ahead and hit these with the clear coat. And we just popped our clear coat in the oven. If we take a look at the directions for this, this is for 18 minutes at 375 degrees. And this, we are allowing this to do the full cure that this says. Just pulled both of the calipers out from their last cure. We just wrapped up powder coating all of the calipers, and these turned out absolutely amazing. I'm definitely stoked with how these turned out, the color. If we take a closer look, there is some lighter spots, and especially the harder to reach areas, but those really aren't that important to me. A couple blemishes on kind of the front just from me bumping into it or touching it. This did not come without practice. I did quite a few different test runs and pieces trying out different color combinations for this color red. These are only example of some of them. I probably did about 10 to 12 different runs and trials just to try and figure out the powder coat gun, but also try and figure out the color of red that I was looking for this actual build. Finally was able to find one. So this is the color combination that we went with. But now that these are wrapped up, the only thing I'll need to do is just remove all of our tape, and then we can get our pistons and we'll get these reassembled back up. I'm probably not going to show you guys the reinstall of the seals and putting everything back in and together. Everything is literally just reverse order. The only thing is just make sure to use a little bit of brake fluid when you're lubricating the seals. For that seal that goes in where the piston slides over, make sure to lube that up, as well as the sides of the piston. You don't want anything to go together dry. Just figured I'd show you one last glance of how this caliper looks out in the sun with all the pearl, sparkly metallic. Definitely a lot of metallic going on in this, and gives it an awesome look. With that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Very awesome first experience powder coating with some decent results. So definitely happy to put this one out. Stay tuned, like, comment, and subscribe.